Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we good? Hey, friendos, I'm Kendall, and you can never hold me to a deadline. And that's especially evident by the fact that this is a Halloween video in November. So, Digital Circus Episode 3. That was something. Since that's technically the reason why you clicked on this video, let me give you a little bit of my thought process for this recent project. While I was editing the Peach doll video, I took a good look at my Pomni doll, and then it hit me. I could make a possessed Pomni faceplate and hopefully have it done by Halloween. Video, face sculpt, and everything. Considering you're seeing this video in November, that should tell you that I got the faceplate sculpting done by Halloween. But the video editing? Yeah, that takes forever. The first step in making any new faceplate for your dolls is making sure that your base doll is properly petrified. The actual first step is to strip down the doll down to its base components. And in this case, those base components are the body and the head back. The next step is to take some foil and crumple it up into a ball. Then you gotta put that into the head. Aluminum foil can be kind of finicky for this, so you might need to just take your foil ball and hit it with something. Look, I get that sounds weird, but there's gonna be a point where you can't scrunch it with your hands anymore. So to get it to properly fit into whatever concave surface you're putting it in, you're gonna have to hit it a few times. After that, you're gonna take some cling wrap, wrap it around the head, and tie it off at the neck. This will assure that none of your clay or whatever sculpting medium you're using is gonna stick to the base head. And to be honest, I would assume that that's a given. If your faceplate has magnets, put them on now so you can embed them in the clay while you're sculpting. And now that you're all prepped, it's time to start sculpting. You can use epoxy sculpt, or in this case I'm using stone clay by Ladal that I have to wet a few times because it is a little old and it's a little dried out. Just use whatever sculpting medium you're used to. Kind of funny for me to say that because I'm so used to sculpting in ZBrush that I feel like a fish out of water sculpting in clay for the first time in about 5 years. If your faceplate has magnets, make sure to put the clay on them first so that they stay in place for the rest of the sculpt. Now that your magnets are properly embedded, you just want to slap on some more clay to get the general shape of the face. All you want to do right now is get a gestural, general shape of the face. Just the basic form, no fancy details. Listen to me when I tell you this. Don't make the same mistake I did by adding details too early in the process. Don't focus on making anything too perfect, like I did. Just focus on the general shape. Please, I'm begging you. I tend to overthink every little detail, as you can see with me pulling out the sculpting tools at this point in the project. In retrospect, these details I didn't like could have just easily been sanded off later, but yeah, hindsight is 20/20, and I wear glasses. This is what I was warning you about earlier, and this is a fatal mistake. In a wet lump of clay like this, you should not be sculpting in details just yet. I should have just let the face dry, but lesson learned, I guess. Learn from my mistakes. I imagine this is somewhat carried over from digital sculpting, seeing that you can sculpt anything in ZBrush at any moment without any dry times. Or maybe I'm just impatient. Maybe it's both. Despite my years of experience with ZBrush, there is definitely a learning curve when it comes to traditional sculpting again. After coming to my senses and letting the poor thing dry for a little bit, I went in and doodled some eyes on the faceplate to get a good idea of where I wanted them to be. And then I started to carve them out because I put too much clay on the face. The good thing about some air dry clays is that you can take the clay maybe I'll leave that in. You can take the clay shavings, mix them with water, and just reactivate them, and they work like clay again. They do take some manhandling to get nice and mushy, though. After that futile attempt at carving in details, I just let the boy dry. Yeah, I should have tried to add the details later. After the face dried, I struggled to put on some gloves before doodling where I wanted the eyes and the teethies to go. And then I washed the sketch off for some reason. I'm assuming I did that because I could generally see where I wanted the parts to go, but in the footage it just looks kind of funny. To form the teefies, I just take little pieces of clay and make them roughly tooth-shaped while putting them on the mouth. After that, I just blended them into the faceplate. To form the top lip, I just take a snake of clay, put it on the top lip, and blend it in with my sculpting tools. She got a herder expression. To form the eyes, I just made 2 pancakes out of some clay and smushed them onto the eye place. Yeah, got 'em. Making the bottom row of teefies is the same as making the top row, with the only real difference being that I did it kind of out of frame. Despite all the necessary pieces being in place, I still overthink every little detail and always feel the need to go in with my sculpting tools. Will my perfectionism ever end? Probably not. Before sanding the faceplate, I just had to take in some of this clay crack filler. It's called Ladal cloth clay. Works very well when it's properly hydrated and not completely dried out like mine was. I filled my container with water, let it sit, and then I used some of that cloth clay to just fill in some cracks on the face and some dents. It just makes a nice finished surface after it's sanded, and it works pretty well as a primer too. The faceplate is looking like that lima bean from that one episode of Jimmy Neutron, so now it's time to sand it. Then it'll look like a smooth lima bean. Now that she's sanded, her faceplate is smooth and white like a vampire's tushy. I'm not going to show the sanding process because dry sanding takes forever and you can't wet sand air dry clay, which sucks because I like doing wet sanding versus dry sanding, and if I want to do dry sanding I have to do it outside, and I wasn't about to record myself sanding outside because I don't want to dox myself. To protect all my hard work, I started by painting on multiple layers of white gesso. I made sure my gesso was watery so that the coats would be nice and smooth. I also blasted it with a hairdryer between coats because I'm an impatient person. I don't like the way gesso feels on my bare fingers, so I went and did a couple coats of acrylic paint too to give it that smooth, plasticky feel. Seriously, gesso feels like chalk and I don't like it. After multiple base coats of paint, it was time to prime it with Mr. Clean. To get started on the face-up, I drew some preliminary markings for the eyes just to get a good idea of where I wanted them to be. I used some pastel chalk on the inside of the mouth and the eyes to start. I knew exactly how I was going to approach the mouth. As for the eyes, I was just going to trust the process. Using a kneaded eraser, I used that to define the shape before going in with a hard edge brush to add some more color while also making a nice edge. After another layer of Mr. Clean, I used a watercolor pencil to draw the yellow eye ring. And this is more of a preliminary marking. It's going to be covered with paint later. On that same layer, I decided to just keep going with the pastels. I definitely went hard putting the pastels on this faceplate. I just really wanted that dark depth. After another layer of Mr. Clean, I started painting the teefies with some white. And this is why I went in so hard with the pastels. I wanted to give the teefies a nice grungy, spooky look. And I knew painting over the black with white would do just that. I didn't initially plan on adding yellow to the teeth, but since I had the yellow out for the eyes, I just thought, what if I layered some yellow on the teeth? And that was a good idea because it kept the teeth from looking too muddy. And naturally speaking, teeth are not bright white anyway, so yeah. Good call. I painted over the eyes so that they would stand out from the black. The watercolor wasn't strong enough by itself, so I knew that I would need acrylic or gouache paint to do the job at this point. I decided the crevices between the teeth weren't dark enough, so I decided to go in with some gouache paint in between the teethies to help them stand out a bit more. I also added black to the eyes to saturate the eyes a bit more. The pastel was a good underlayer, but it just wasn't deep and dark enough, if that makes sense. At this point I thought I was done, and I really did like the result. But then I came back a few days later, and the ring in the eyes, it honestly just looks too small. I knew what I had to do, so I had to paint the yellow circle rings a little bit bigger. After another layer of Mr. Clean, I busted out the acrylics again to slowly extend the ring of the eye, just hoping to make it a more extended yellow. Yeah, that makes sense. To extend the pupil, I just slowly added black in hopes of getting a thinner but more expanded ring for the eye. If needed, I used some black paint to refine the shape of the eye, cover any minuscule errors, just basically overthinking every little detail as usual. For the sake of it, I just brought out a brush and rubbed it in some pastel and decided to put that around the eyes and at the edges of the mouth. Made the teeth look a little more grungy while making the eyes look a little more hunterly. The face is looking fabulous. Now I just need to make sure it's not going to deteriorate over time. The next step is a couple layers of matte varnish. And for those of you who have a problem with your varnish coming out shiny, you need to shake it. Just shake it, keep shaking it, just shake, shake, shake. If you think you've shaken it enough, you've only done it about halfway, you need to shake it some more. Pretend it's a can of soda that you want to explode. Just shake it beyond belief. And then when you crack it open, it'll get everywhere. Am I talking about varnish or soda? I don't know, just shake it. Now that the varnish is properly shaken, just gotta apply a few coats with a brush. And then blast it with a hairdryer if you're impatient like I am between coats. I know the instructions say you're supposed to wait like 2 hours between coats or something, but I haven't had a problem doing this. So if this comes back to bite me later, I'll let you guys know. Pomni's new scary face is finished, so now it's time to put her together. And look at that, it looks really good. Well, I have a couple things I could say about this doll. I made her about probably under a year ago, and while she was great for my skill level then, I definitely feel like I can make a better one now. This current iteration is kind of hard to pose, but overall it does look great. Next is time for the photo shoot. Except not really, I just set the doll aside and tried to curl my hair. Have you ever heard of paper bag curls? You know, like put pieces of brown paper bag in your hair and then you curl your hair? See, my mom and her sisters used to do that all the time in Mexico, and when I was a kid, they showed me how to do it. But this time, I tried it with paper towels. And, this was the result. Not really what I intended. I think I ended up just making my hair more voluminous. Kinda has like a 60s nerd look. Or the 80s, more like it. Ow. It was an attempt. Not bad, actually. Maybe with some styling it could look really good. Might have to try again another day. Maybe I should buy the paper straws and give that a try. Y'all remember the Princess Diaries? Anyways, now time for the photo shoot for real this time. So, as you can probably see, I took some of these photos during the photo shoot of the Peach doll, too. The video for the Peach doll and the overall construction of this faceplate were actually being done at the same time. I did give Possessed Pomni her own little special photo shoot, but I'm gonna be frank, this doll is becoming extremely hard to pose. I've definitely come a long way since making her original body, but as mentioned in my last video, I do want to migrate from ball joints to something closer to action figure joints for better posability for future dolls. That and the way that the weight is distributed throughout the Pomni doll and throughout the Gummy Goo doll, it makes them very unoptimal for posing, and they can't even stand on their own. I'd really like to remake both dolls. I have the original files and I could probably just modify them in a way that would be more functional. But I also really want to make a Gangle doll sometime soon. Maybe I'll just do all three for the start of 2025. Who knows? I'm ambitious like that. Despite me going off about all my past mistakes with my past dolls, I really did enjoy this process. It was a nice refresher for hand sculpting. That's something I don't do very often anymore, but it's a skill I should probably keep up. I couldn't tell you if any of my next projects will have hand sculpting. They may, but honestly, we're all just gonna have to see. If you'd like to see more from me, please check out my card linked in the description for all of my social medias. I usually call out my website at this point in the video, but my website is currently under construction. I'll be sure to bring it up again once it's back up and running. I hope you're all doing well, and if no one told you today, the world wouldn't be the same without you. Know that you're valued and you make my world a better place every day. Happy Dia de los Muertos, Happy Veterans Day, and Shalom everyone!